Good morning. I am the Reverend Barbara Gaydon, and I am honored to be your lead minister and to assist in leading worship today. I'm so happy to see all of you here in our Zoom room and to know that a lot of others of you are joining us through live stream. If you're watching from Facebook or YouTube, thank you so much for joining us. Even though we're gathering through many platforms, we remain one beloved community, united in our mission, which is that we are bound to courageous love, growing in spirit and inspiring compassionate action. Today, we welcome Sabrina Trupia to our pulpit. We met Sabrina last year as one of our 4 Eden seminarians doing field study among 4 UU churches in Illinois and Missouri. This year, Sabrina is serving First Unitarian Church of St. Louis as their intern minister. We're delighted to have her with us today as our preacher. If you are new to this congregation, we're so glad that you're here. I hope this is a time that is meaningful for you and speaks to your heart and mind. I also hope that when we resume worship in person, we might have a chance to meet with you. Please drop us a line at welcome@eliotchapel.org. That's welcome@eliotchapel.org, and let us know that you're here so that we can help you connect. This is a liberal religious community of spiritual seekers. We welcome you in the fullness of your age, race, ethnicity, gender expression, sexual orientation, and religious background. Our faith is not lived in creeds, but in deeds. Not in the hereafter, but in the here and now. Our core values are freedom, reason, respect, and love. In the Unitarian Universalist tradition, we light a chalice to symbolize that we are entering sacred space and have prepared our hearts for the giving and receiving of beloved community. Ron and Yvonne Kirkpatrick will light our chalice today.
We come together every week, bound not by a creed or a mutual desire to please one God or many gods. Yet we are drawn together by a belief that how we are in the world, who we are together, matters.
We light this chalice together in the knowledge that love, not fear, can change this world.
With joy we claim the growing light, advancing thought and widening view, the larger freedom, clearer sight, which from the old unfold the new. With wider view come loftier goal, with fuller light more good to see, with freedom truer self-control, with knowledge deeper reverence be.
Good morning. My name is Steve Menerick. My wife and I showed up at Eliot Chapel 20 years ago with 2 small children in tow. Those children went through the RE program at Eliot and are now in college. Meanwhile, I've been involved at Eliot through the choir and through the board of trustees and stewardship committees. I've also been active in social justice. And I'm really delighted to be with you here this morning to read our congregational covenant. As a free congregation, we promise to one another our mutual trust and support. To create beloved community, we promise to be kinder to each other than we have to be, to listen fully to each other with an open mind and heart, to speak responsibly and respectfully, and to find ways to improve our church for all members and friends.
Our story this morning is called The Wise Teacher's Test, and it is adapted from a Jataka tale, which is a Buddhist story. Once upon a time, on the outskirts of a big city in Japan, there stood an old temple. From a young age, boys who wanted to study Buddhism would come to live in the temple and to learn from the master teacher, a Buddhist monk. One day, the Buddhist monk who ran this small temple decided to teach his young students a lesson. He gathered them around him and spoke. "My dear students, as you can see, I am growing old and slow. I can no longer provide for the needs of the temple as I once did. I know I have not yet taught you to work for money, and so I can only think of one thing that can keep our school from closing." The students drew close with their eyes wide. He said, "Our nearby city is full of wealthy people with more money in their purses than they could ever need. I want you to go into the city and follow those rich people as they walk through the crowded streets, or when they walk down the deserted alleyways. When no one is looking, and only when no one is looking, you must steal from their purses. That way, we will have enough money to keep our school alive." Now, let me pause this story for just a second. Let's pretend that you were one of the students in this class. What do you think that you would do if your teacher said that to you? Well, if you're thinking you would question him, that's just what these boys did. "But master," the boy said in disbelief, "you have taught us that it is wrong to take anything that does not belong to us." "Yes, indeed I have," the old monk replied. "It would be wrong to steal if it were not absolutely necessary. And remember, you must not be seen. If anyone can see you, you must not steal. Do you understand?" Boys looked nervously from one another to one another. Had their beloved teacher lost it? Had he gone mad? His eyes shone with such intensity, such as they had never seen before. "Yes, master," they said quietly. "Good," he said. Now go, and remember, you must not be seen." So what do you think now? Remember that today we're talking about intentions. Is saving an ancient and sacred temple a good reason to steal? The boys got up and quietly began to file out of the temple building. The old monk rose slowly and watched them go. When he turned back, he saw that one student was still standing quietly in the corner of the room. "Why did you not go with the others?" he asked the boy. "Do you not want to help save our temple?" "I do, master," said the boy quietly. "But you said that we had to steal without being seen. I know that there is no place on earth that I would not be seen, for I would always see myself." Excellent, exclaimed the teacher. That is just the lesson that I hoped my students would learn. But you are the only one to see it. Run and tell your friends to return to the temple before they get us all in trouble. The boy ran and got his friends, who were nervously gathered just outside of sight of the temple, trying to decide what to do. When they returned, the master told them the words the boy had spoken, and they all understood the lesson. No matter what we do, he said, we always have a part of ourselves that is quietly watching and that knows right from wrong and can guide us if we listen. That is the end of our story. Thank you for listening.
Good morning. My name is Sabrina Trupia, and I'm delighted to be with you today. Our prayer today comes by Matt Alspaugh, and it's entitled Breathe With Me. Breathe with me. Breathe with me the breath of life. Inhale, inspire, inspiration, Ruach, Pneuma, Spiritus, the Holy Spirit, the many names for breath. Breathe with me. Know that with each breath we take in, molecules of air that were breathed by every person that ever lived. Breathe with me and breathe the breath of Jesus, of Moses, of Muhammad, of Buddha. Breathe with me and know that we're all interdependent. The spirit of life flows through us all. Breathe with me as we come together to do the holy work of interconnection and relationship, that our work here may be blessed. Amen.
Almost every Sunday, we give away half of our offering to an organization in the community that lives our core values of justice, equity, and compassion. This month, we are supporting the Meechan Park Neighborhood Improvement Association. This association was created in the 1990s by residents of Meechan Park and Kirkwood when Kirkwood annexed Meechan Park. We joined together to advocate for the well-being of the community. The Neighborhood Association has a special mission to serve families and children, adopting families at Christmas, providing school supplies, educational opportunities, and scholarships. We have a long-standing commitment to Meechan Park. Last summer, we co-hosted a vaccination clinic at their back-to-school fair, and every year we dedicate a month of our offering to support their life-saving work. You can give by texting Eliot Shared Plate and the amount you want to give. You can also send a check with Meechan Park in the memo line, or go to our website and click Give and the Shared Plate Fund. Let us be a generous people. I think before we ask Sabrina to do the reading, I'm going to share with you the words of the dedication of gifts. To the work of the Church, which is weaving a tapestry of love and action, we dedicate our lives, and these are offerings. Thank you.
A reading today is by the late Thich Nhat Hanh, who died last week, at the age of 95. It is from a book called A Pebble for Your Pocket, and it's called Mindful Stories for Children and Grown-ups. This one is entitled Chasing Clouds. What is true happiness? Often we think that we cannot be happy if we don't get what we want. There are a million ways to be happy, but because we don't know how to open the door to happiness, we just chase after the things we think we want. The truth is, the more you chase after happiness, the more you suffer. I have a nice story to tell you about a stream that descended from a mountaintop. The stream was very young, and her goal was to reach the ocean. She only wanted to run as quickly as possible. But when she got down to the plains, to the lowlands and the fields below, she slowed down. She became a river. A river cannot run as quickly as a young stream of water. Flowing slowly along, she began to reflect the clouds in the sky. There were many kinds of clouds with many different forms and colors. Soon, the river was spending all of her time chasing clouds, one after another. But the clouds would not stand still. They came and went, and she chased after them. When the river saw that no cloud had wanted to stay with her, it made her very sad, and she cried. One day, there was a strong wind that blew all the clouds away. The sky was magnificently blue, but because there were no clouds, the river began to think that life was not worth living anymore. She did not know how to enjoy the blue sky. She found the sky empty, and her life, too, seemed to have lost its meaning. That night, her despair was so great that she wanted to die. But how can a river die? From being someone you can't become no one. From being something you can't become nothing. All night long the river cried, her tears lapping against the shore. That was the first time she had gone back to herself. Before that, she had always run away from herself. Instead of looking for happiness inside, she looked for it on the outside. So the first time she went back to herself and listened to the sound of her tears, she discovered something startling. She realized that she was in fact made of clouds. It was strange. She had been chasing after clouds, thinking she could not be happy without clouds. And yet, she herself was made of clouds. What she was seeking was already in her. Happiness can be like that. If you know how to go back to the here and now, you will realize that the elements of your happiness are already available to you. You don't need to chase them anymore. Suddenly, the river became aware of something reflecting on her cool, still surface. It was the blue sky. How peaceful, how free was that blue sky? That filled her with happiness. She was able to reflect the sky for the first time. Before that, she had only reflected the clouds and chased after them. She had completely ignored the presence of intense blue sky that was always available to her. She hadn't noticed that her happiness was made of the solidity, freedom, and space that were already there. That was a night of deep transformation, and her tears, suffering were transformed into joy and peace. The next morning, the wind came up and the clouds returned. Now the river found that she could reflect the clouds with no attachment, with equanimity. Every time a cloud came, she said, "Hello, cloud." And when the cloud left, she was not sad at all and told it, "I will see you sometime later." She knew now that her freedom was the very foundation of her happiness. She had learned to stop and to not run anymore. Then one night, something wonderful revealed itself to her, the image of the full moon reflected on her surface. It made her very happy. Holding hands with the clouds and the moon, she now made her way towards the ocean. But she was no longer in a hurry to reach it. She was enjoying every moment. Each of us is a river. Before I start my message, I would like to take a moment to just breathe in and out, to take in these wonderful words. My spiritual practice is meditation. Well, one of them is. And typically, when I tell people I meditate nearly every day, they pause and go, ah. Sometimes, if we are close, or if they're extroverts, or if they're moved by the spirit, they will say something like, I wish I could do that. I've tried and it really didn't work for me. Well, it didn't work for me either, at least in the beginning. We started meditation when we lived in Vermont. My spouse and I used to go to a Buddhist meditation center several times a week. We also did several weekend-long meditation retreats. We had regular individual sessions with meditation instructors, the whole deal. But although that was a time when I was sitting crisscross applesauce for hours on end, I can count on one hand the times where I felt that I was getting anything out of it. I always felt like I wasn't doing it right. And I wasn't. You see, I had approached meditation instruction like I approach everything else in life. I wanted to succeed in it. I wanted to get an A in meditation. I strove. I read a lot of books. I tried very hard, and try as hard as I might, I wasn't able to calm down my thoughts and to be still. I knew the instruction to watch my breathing, watch the clouds go by, to let go of my thoughts, but it was hard. It turns out the one thing I wasn't able to do was let go of my idea of what meditation was supposed to be like. I thought that at some point meditation was supposed to spontaneously make me become, as they say, one with everything. And that, try as I might, was never happening. During meditation, I had many insights. I was able to understand things about myself, think of things about meditation itself, but nothing happened spontaneously. So to me, nothing happened. So you could say that I was very similar to the little river in the story we just read, who wanted to hold on to the clouds and missed out on seeing the beauty of the clear sky or of the moon. And I didn't know that yet. So I dropped it. Life happens, and it was exceedingly easy to forego meditation practice until one day I simply wasn't meditating anymore. Though whenever it came up in conversation, I would say, yes, I know how to meditate. I mean, in theory, I did. I read the books. I figured out what to do to get an A. And so one day, about 4 years ago, because I had admitted to knowing how to meditate, I was invited to a non-denominational group meditation practice. And so I went, not knowing what to expect. This was not a Buddhist group, nothing I was used to. In this group, in fact, we did not sit on cushions. We sat on actual soft furniture, like sofas and chairs. We did not cross our leg or hold any kind of posture. There was no instruction to follow or any mantra to recite. The only thing we were told was this: we will be meditating for 20 minutes. If you don't know how to meditate, just sit quietly for 20 minutes, try not to squirm. And then after the meditation period, come and get one of us and we'll teach you how to meditate. So this time I had no preconceived notions of what I was supposed to do. There was no book, no nothing. It's just like, don't squirm. So I simply sat down in a comfortable chair. I believe it was a recliner, very comfortable, and tried not to squirm while following my breath for 20 minutes. That's it. At some point during the session, a phrase flashed from inside me: welcome back. After this, I felt my mind quiet and the 20 minutes flew by. So what was the difference? Well, one difference was time. As one ages, one becomes more accepting and patient. But I believe the other one was the freedom of not expecting anything special to occur. I wasn't trying to get an A or do it right or impress anyone. I was just trying to not squirm and following my breath. What I was doing is what the late contemplative monk Thomas Keating calls an exercise of intention. In other words, what was different was that I went to that meeting simply with the one intention of meditating. I did not get caught up in other mental distractions like what I wanted things to be like, what I thought I should be, what I thought I should do. I simply sat there without squirming. Since that time, I've been able to incorporate meditation into my everyday spiritual practice, and it has worked. Because you know what they say about meditation, it's not what you think. This month's theme is living with intention. And my meditation practice story illustrates an aspect of intentional living: the reduction of everyday gestures into one mindfulness. Barbara Brown Taylor, in her book An Altar in the World, says that there is no spiritual treasure to be found in life if not what is found while giving ourselves fully to the most ordinary daily activities. This can be applied to anything: eating mindfully, walking mindfully, washing the dishes mindfully. This is living with intention, not getting caught up with our own thought and second guesses and just trying to stay in the moment. And of course, this is a process because we humans are easily distracted. Scientists tells us that the human brain is not wired to focus uninterruptedly for hours. Rather, the human ability to focus happens in short-lived bursts. We are supposed to become distracted by shiny objects, squirrels, by the next thing on social media, by advertisements, because this is an evolutionary advantage, the ability to scan around to see if there is something more important or more dangerous than the thing we were focusing on. If we can imagine early humans still running away from animals with big teeth, distraction works to alert us of any risks that may be out there. But this is only one part of intentionality. The term intention is from the Latin intendo, which means stretch. So the other part of living with intention has to do with a process where we stretch our comfort zone, our ability to focus, our understanding of the world. When we live with intention, we typically endeavor to do stuff that does not come spontaneously to us, like meditation. Okay, I need to confess to something. This sermon was headed in a completely different direction earlier this week. It even had a different title. But at some point, I came across an article on this online magazine, everydayfeminism.com, entitled Intent versus Impact. Its subtitle was Why Your Intentions Don't Really Matter. In it, the author Jamie Utt discusses people who deflect criticism about their oppressive language or actions by making the conversation about their intentions, their intent, and not the impact of their words on the oppressed. This deflection in what I intended ends up centering privilege and stops any possibility of discussion of the impact of the action or the speech. Here's the passage that really stuck out to me. Quote, after all, in the end, what does the intent of our action really matter if our actions have the impact of furthering the marginalization or oppression of those around us? In some ways, this is a simple lesson of relationship. If I say something that hurts my partner, it doesn't much matter whether I intended the statement to mean something else because my partner is hurting. I need to listen to how my language hurt my partner. I need to apologize, and then I need to reflect and empathize to the best of my ability so I don't do it again. But when we're dealing with the ways in which our identities intersect with those around us, and in turn, the ways our privileges and our experiences of marginalization and oppression intersect, this lesson becomes something much larger and more profound. This becomes a lesson of justice, end quote. This is about intent too, but not in the way I was talking about earlier, or is it? Is this the dark side of intent, the weaponization of its meaning? Have I got it all wrong? Is living with intention another individualistic, feel-good, new age self-care, nothing to do with collective spirituality and liberation kind of thing? What kind of rhetorical fallacy have I fallen into? Are we even talking about the same thing? Can both things be true? I mean, like, I have so many questions, or I had them. But basically, what I was asking, or I am asking, is whether intentionality matters and how it matters, and when does it matter? Because I believe intentionality matters, but also I think the piece I just read is right. After some reflection, I think I've come to understand that living with intention can be reconciled with Jamie Utt's lesson of justice. In fact, paradoxically, living with intention would, in most cases, prevent a discussion that centers oppressive intent. Hear me out. So I talked about exercise of intention. Henri Nouwen was a world-renowned spiritual guide, pastor, author, teacher. You may have heard of him because he wrote a really super famous book called The Wounded Healer. And that is an invaluable resource for chaplains, for pastors. But he wrote a lot of other books. I'm reading his book called Discernment, which is a guide to understanding what we're all called to do with our life, our vocation, if you will, not just pastors and ministers to be, such as myself, but everybody. In the introduction, he says the following quote, when we are spiritually deaf, we're not aware that anything important is happening in our lives. We keep running away from the present moment and we try to create experiences that make our lives worthwhile. So we fill up the time to avoid the emptiness we would otherwise feel. He goes on to say, discernment is a life of listening to a deeper sound and marching to a different beat, a life in which we become all ears, end quote. Discernment implies a movement towards deliberate action. But as Nuon says, the noise of our daily lives sometimes drowns out the deeper sound. He tells us in his own experience that he had to slow down and make his life quiet to be able to hear the sound. That in itself is deliberate action. And what is more, because each of us is immersed in our own context, in a life, a job, a set of friends, a geographic location, our openness to living with intention depends on our ability to read the signs that pertain to us, our daily life. These signs, these deeper sounds may come from a variety of sources, but I bet you that in each of our lives, there is also the plight of the oppressed. The trick is to be able to pay attention. Reaching contemplative quiet, what Buddhists call detachment, are exercises of intention, are meant to make us understand, not escape the difficult stuff. Again, Nuon says, quote, detachment does not mean shirking one's responsibilities. Rather, it is a radical stance in the world that makes it possible to move unafraid into the center of evil and not be destroyed by it, end quote. Our UU theology, specifically our seventh principle, tells us that we're all interconnected. And to truly understand this, our intention and our attention must be in sync with each other. And when we understand that everything is connected, we can start to understand that oppression affects the spirit, not only of the oppressed, but also of the oppressor. It affects our connection to each other. If you want to take it even further, one of the possible definitions for sin in the UU theology is disconnection. And disconnection can be personal, so personal sin, but also structural or social, societal. Statistics tell us the middle-class white people today are the most depressed and addicted and suicidal that they've ever been. And that is because of disconnection. The inability to live intentionally takes emotional energy that we don't put into creating relationships and helping each other and forming community. And this in turn affects the world we live in. So let's go back to the intent versus impact article. Intention is important for how we live, because if we live intentionally inside of our principle and inside of our faith, the chances are that we would end up saying, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't intend to hurt you by being sexist, racist, homophobic, what have you, are not zero, but they are a lot lower. I don't know if you guys know the old poem by Marianne Pietzker advises to ask ourselves before speaking, is it true? Is it necessary? Is it kind? And when we do so, we pause, we make space for quiet, and we set ourselves up to hear that voice inside. And that is how I reconcile intentionality versus the impact of hurtful, oppressive, or racist comments discussed in the article. Living with intention is a thoughtful, slow-paced, quiet way of being, where we make a point of paying attention to what's important. If or when we do that, then we will know that it is spiritually important to respect the voices of the oppressed. May you be blessed today and all of your days with a slow, intentional life. Amen.
blessing fall on this fair world, on mountain, valley, forest, ocean. The clarion winds in ceaseless motion, and heaven's blue banner high unfurled. And bless the staff that hither bore me, the arms that helped me on my way, the boundless plain that lies before me, the glowing morn, the evening gray. The very path by which I wander shows glorious, golden, bathed in light. No blade of grass that glistens yonder, but seems a star from heaven's height. Oh, might I in my exaltation to all the world this joy impart, would I might clasp the whole creation, lovers or strangers, foes or brothers, would I might clasp them, the whole creation, with fervent rapture.
Before we close today, I would like to invite you, some of you who wish to stay on the Zoom call, to share with us another exercise in intention, the intent of becoming and building beloved community. We're going to have a little conversation with the board and the ministers and everybody who wants to join. How about your ideas of building community in this time of COVID? And also, that's at 11 o'clock on this call. And then at noon, we have our coffee Zoom hour, which is always fun. And you get to process and think about and just have fellowship with the rest of us about the service and just life in general. So our closing words, let me extinguish our chalice. May the love which overcomes all differences, which heals all wounds, which puts to flight all fears, which reconciles all who are separated, be in us and among us now and always. Amen.